Okay guys, let's talk about the jointer. The jointer is the first machine that you use when you're starting to true up a piece of stock. By truing up a piece of stock, I mean starting with a piece which is crooked and imperfect and making it perfectly straight and flat with square corners and square ends. This is a very important concept in woodworking. Up on the wall over here, I have 6 steps to true up stock, okay? Step number 1 says joint one face. Joint means use the jointer. This machine is called a jointer, okay? And it's going to make one surface flat, and then we're going to get one straight edge with this machine. So I picked a piece of wood. Well, first of all, almost all wood that you get, good hardwood anyway, it comes rough and it's warped. See how crooked this is? If you're going to straighten out a piece of warped wood like this, you always put the concave side down. Now it's not rocking. It's relatively easy to straighten that one out. I picked a really crooked piece of wood, though, to use for our demonstration. It's got a couple holes in it. That doesn't matter. It's just a piece of scrap. But this piece of wood is not just warped. It's twisted. This is very common. So we're going to talk about safety here, but you've got to use the machine correctly if you're going to get rid of the twist in your piece of wood. So this is the wood we're going to work with. But first, let's say a few words about the machine. The jointer has an in-feed table. All this is the in-feed table, and it has an out-feed table. The out-feed table can be moved up and down, but you will never move it. Because when I set up the machine, I make sure that this part of the machine is exactly level with the cutter head. There are several blades in this cylinder. They're extremely sharp, okay? And the blade is exactly level with the out-feed table. Now, if the in-feed table was the same level, you could put the wood across, nothing would happen. But we can lower the in-feed table by turning a handle right here, and I can see where it's set right now. I try to leave it set, take about a 1/16 of an inch off of our piece of wood. The in-feed table is lower by about a 1/16 of an inch. So, I'll take our piece of wood and I'll use a push stick. We always keep our fingers at least 4 inches away from the blade. Okay, 4 inches, about that far. And this push stick will make sure our fingers are well away. It's not good enough to say, oh, there's wood between my hand and the cutter. You would never be doing this because your hand is too close, okay? You will almost always be using a push stick. You'll never have your thumb behind it pushing on it, okay? So you hold it like this, and when you've got a piece of wood that's twisted like this, what you have to remember is just to hold the wood the same way each cut. So the first cut, you're going to see it's going to take some off this corner, but probably not much off the corner on the right-hand side. I don't go through a second time and push on the other corner, because then I'll make it look smooth, but it'll still be twisted. So my first cut, I'm keeping the pressure on this corner. The second cut, I do the same thing. Now, we have a vacuum system in here. I should turn the vacuum on. In fact, every time that you use this machine, I want the vacuum on. Otherwise, all the shavings plug up down here. But I don't want the noise of the vacuum going, so I'll just make 1 or 2 cuts, and hopefully it doesn't plug it up and the video will still be audible. So I'm holding it firmly. And you can see it's cut just a little bit off that corner, cut this end. Next cut, I'm not going to change that corner. I can keep the pressure on this corner again. Maybe one more. So we've just completed step number 1 on the list as we're truing up stock, right? We've planed one surface true and flat. It's straight, it's smooth. The next thing we want to do is get one edge straight and square. Now often there'll be some kind of a curve to your piece of wood. Always put the concave side down. This one is pretty straight to begin with. So as I make this cut, I'm going to hold it against the fence. Now, it's important that the fence be exactly perpendicular to the table or to the bed. And so I'm using a tri-square. This thing is called a tri-square. The word to try doesn't mean just to exert effort. The word to try also means to test. So I'm testing. Is it 90 degrees? Yes, it is. If you need to, you can adjust this, but I'm telling you right now, in our shop, we hardly ever have to move this fence to different angles. We just leave it where it is. So if you're doing something important, come and check it, but it's going to be square almost all of the time because it's locked in that position right now and we don't change it very often. So I'm going to hold the face, the first face that we planed, against the fence, okay? If you don't hold it tight, you may just plane it and get it, and this corner might not be 90 degrees. But if you hold it tight, you can plane it and it'll be fine. Now remember I said keep your fingers 4 inches away from the blade? If I have my hand on top of the fence and I do this, well, that's pretty close to 4 inches. So I think I could get away with just using my hands. This hand pushes against the fence, I go past the cutter, and I reach around. Okay, so I was saying I could use my thumb on this because it's pretty close to 4 inches, but it's also still easy to use the push stick. Left hand holds it against the fence. Reach around. And so we've got a corner here which is perfectly square. You can hold it up to the light and take a look at it. It's going to be exactly 90 degrees if you have held it tight against the fence. Okay? Well, we're just about done talking about the jointer. I remind you, in-feed table, out-feed table, there's a guard across. Keep your fingers away from the blade. Fingers should always be 4 inches away from the blade, never pushing down above the wood. Also, I should mention you can't plane short wood. So you would never take a piece of wood like this and try to plane the end of it. First of all, it'd splinter the edge, but also there's a danger it would tip in there and kick back at you, okay? I can't say that I've ever seen a kickback on the jointer, but they say it could happen. In the textbooks, if you read about safety with the jointer, they will say, don't stand in the danger zone, in the kickback zone. Well, I don't think it's likely, but it's not a good idea to stand here, okay? The kickback zone on a table saw is much more important. So when you're using the machine, by the way, did you notice I was standing about here as I made my cuts? I know that sometimes beginners are kind of afraid of the machine and they're out like this. Not good, okay? You can stand right here. Just make sure there's no loose clothing. Okay, so we're done talking about the jointer. Next, we're going to go to the thickness planer where it says plane to desired thickness. We want this piece of wood to be the same thickness everywhere, and that machine is going to do it.